The U.S. has made clear it's ratcheting up pressure on Germany to step in and use Nord Stream 2 as a bit of a bargaining chip here. What is Olaf Scholz's likely response going to be in your view?
Yes, certainly. There are a whole lot of foreign policy crisis awaiting the new chancellor and the new traffic light coalition in Berlin. And as you mentioned, first and foremost is the troop buildup on the Ukrainian border. I believe that Olaf Scholz is going to want to make a European decision. He's going to want to talk to his counterparts in Brussels about how the EU should work with the United States to sanction Russia if, in fact, an incursion happens early next year, as intelligence agencies are reporting. And of course, Nord Stream 2 is hanging in the balance. I think it will be very hard for this coalition to certify the project if, in fact, Russia invades Ukraine.
Well, you know, it's pretty clear that the coalition says they want to have strong relations with the U.S. and with Europe. But at the end of the day, Germany has a strong dependence on both China and Russia in different ways. How should we think about the cost that Germany is going to be willing to endure, the price that they'd be willing to pay to strengthen those relationships with allies?
So for the past 16 years, Angela Merkel has been a very consummate manager in terms of balancing the commercial interests of Germany with the foreign policy and security pillars of a strong transatlantic relationship and a strong relationship with the EU, because many partners have called Germany out for its relations with China and Russia. And with the Greens as part of this coalition that have a very strong bent towards human rights, I think it will be really difficult to continue that balancing act between commercial interests and its commitment to human rights and the rule of law, because these are two principles that were very strongly heard in the coalition agreement. And I think Olaf Scholz will have a hard time sort of continuing on that path that Merkel made. And at some point, Germany will have to make a decision about having a red line and continuing trade relations with Russia that is, demanding spheres of influence that just cannot necessarily fit with a rules-based international order that Germany adheres to.
Let me ask you about Annalena Baerbock on her idea of defense policy, because I've been listening to, I think it was a podcast in which she was saying that she's planning on having a proactive defense policy. Would that also mean more boots on the ground? And would that potentially increase the risk of having a war in Europe?
Well, it's not necessarily Annalena Baerbock's decision to be made about sending troops to missions, out-of-area missions. That's for the Bundestag to decide on. And of course, the Traffic Light Coalition has a majority in this government. But you also have to remember that there are three other ministries that are being held by the SPD, the Defense Ministry, the Development Ministry, and the Interior Ministry, which have certainly strong security portfolios. And so that means that Olaf Scholz will ultimately be the one to decide whether Germany has an active foreign policy, or if it's simply rhetoric that we're reading in the coalition agreement and simply rhetoric coming out of the foreign ministry, because the country will have to, of course, have the means to carry out its aims.